Hello, friends. It's Lisa Williams, the Chief Inspiration Officer here at Perfect Side Gigs. I'm having so much fun. We are in the midst of our interview series, Corporate to Entrepreneur. We are hearing from so many wonderful experts who have made that brave leap themselves, and they're sharing their wisdom, some of the challenges and amazing joy that they've experienced in that journey. So today we are hearing from Mr. Marty Gilbert out of Chicago. Now, Marty is the founder and CEO of the North Shore Executive Networking Group. It's the largest job search and coaching firm in the Chicago area. They have over 6,000 members. He's helped over 1,500 executive level candidates land in their next amazing opportunity. And he's just such a help to his community. He's made an amazing impact. He has a prolific background in various technology industries, in sales and marketing and product development. He's traveled internationally for much of his career. And I'm just so excited to have you on our show, Marty. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. So you have a very interesting journey. I love that you actually started your journey to entrepreneurship part-time. And sort of got to the point where your side gig income replaced your full-time gig. Can you just tell us, I'd love to hear in our audience to have an understanding of that journey, what prompted it, how did you know when it was time, to make the leap and things like that?
Well, like a lot of folks, I started early in my career working for large companies. Not unusual. Worked for a very large advertising agency here in Chicago, and then ended up moving to Japan for a couple years. Worked with the largest ad agency in the world, a company by the name of Dentsu. They're a firm of over 6,000 employees, and at the time they only had 5 non-Japanese in the company. I was one of the 5. I was based in their Tokyo headquarters, and I was helping all the Japanese firms export their products outside of Japan. Very exciting time. The Sony Walkman was invented, all kinds of microelectronics and all kinds of advancements using semiconductors. I then went on to work, when I came back to the States, went to work for Motorola and was there for 15 years and had a great career and a great time. But I wanted to see what life was like outside of Motorola, because it was a very large corporate structure. We had 140,000 employees with a $30 billion company. And I knew that, it was going to take a long time for me to get to where I really wanted to be, if I could get there. So I started working then for a lot of mid-sized companies and had an opportunity to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, have a lot more impact, make decisions quicker, which I really enjoyed. During that period, I changed jobs quite a bit. I was finding that about every 2 or 3 years, I was switching jobs, sometimes from my own choice, sometimes not my own choice. But I found a way to bounce back and find my next opportunity rather quickly by applying a lot of my marketing methodologies to my job search. It was about 10 years ago when I was in one of my job searches that I decided to pull together 5 other people that, like myself, were in the mid or latter stages of their careers, had good careers, but for whatever reason, were now in between jobs. And I created this small accountability group. It was a group of 6. We were all in different functional responsibilities and looking for our next opportunity. We started to help each other. I ended up landing after about 2 months, but I kept the group going. And this was really the genesis for the North Shore Executive Networking Group, because I began to formalize it. While I was working full-time on my day job, 50, 60 hours a week, I was spending my evenings and weekends working on the North Shore Executive Networking Group, or NSENG. And started helping more and more people with their job search. And I started getting in keynote speakers, and I moved all the meetings to the evening so that I could do my thing during the day and then do this thing at night. And what started with 6 today is over 6,300. It's all been organic growth. But I was really time sharing. And so when you talk today, we talk about side gigs. this is the classic side gig to full gig opportunity. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. I liked doing the ability to impact people's lives in such a big and substantial way, but it represented the minority portion of my week. And so I always wanted to spend more and more time doing this. And it was 2 years ago that I decided, you know what, this group has gotten so large, it's growing so fast. I've got more than 5 people joining the group every day because they're hearing about the success that others are having by being aligned with what we do, and they're able to land their jobs faster, that I decided to go all in 2 years ago. I had been doing meetings every 2 weeks, but now I could add a lot more things. Because I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching for job seekers. And you need to understand that the demographic of my group are some of the most difficult people to find their next job, because in order to be a member of NSC&G, you have to have at least 10 years of work experience, which means you're pretty far into your career. And quite honestly, anybody over the age of 50 is going to have a much more difficult time finding their next opportunity for multiple reasons, right? One is their age. But most importantly, there aren't as many opportunities for folks that are much more talented, that have grown up the ladder. There just are fewer opportunities for them. So I really intentionally established this group to help that audience. So as I started to do more and more coaching while I was doing it on a part-time basis, when I came in full-time, I was able to spend so much more of my time working with folks on a one-on-one basis, and then subsequently added other services. So I had meetings, I had coaching, I was conducting webinars every 2 weeks, bringing in keynote speakers, and we'd do things online where we would talk about different job search topics for about an hour. I would do workshops where I would be in front of the audience for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, talking on a multiplicity of different job search topics, where I could be very hands-on with the audience, interacting with them, answering questions, presenting to them materials and tactics and strategies on how they can shorten their search. And to me, this is really where I wanted to be. I grew up in all these technology environments, and for so much of my career, because I'm not an educated engineer, I'm an experienced marketer and general manager. But when you deal with a lot of technology, if you're not an engineer, oftentimes you can feel like an outsider. And it's not a comfortable feeling. And for so much of my career, I was working in these technologies, and of course I was learning them as I was going. But for me, in the career that I have going right now, I am the subject matter expert, really for the first time in my career. Now, I've always been an expert when it comes to marketing and running businesses, but I am truly an expert when it comes to finding, and helping people find their next job, because I've been through it myself, and I've coached over 1,500 people on how to get to where they want to be. And so now I'm able to apply my real life experience to real life individuals and particularly on how I can help them change not just their lives, but their entire family, because we know when somebody's out of work, it affects more than the job seeker. It affects everyone around them. And that's where I quite honestly get the greatest satisfaction, because I see people moving on in a better place with their lives and embracing, what future, is going to be theirs as they move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I both, I mean, in a sense, have been in recruiting for a long time. And I find, obviously, it sounds like you went through a period where you were doing a lot of job hopping in a sense. And I find that often is a sign that you are supposed to do something else. It might not be the next job. It might truly be your own thing. Can you just share with us, you found a problem and you had a solution. That's what your business has offered, which I find that's what most successful businesses do. What do you feel, what can you share with our audience about what were the signs for you, and how different is it? And what do you think you need to really have in terms of being prepared to have your own business and run it successfully?
Well, I think first and foremost, a business is only going to be successful if you're addressing, a need. There's absolutely got to be a demand, okay? And in some cases, there can be a huge pent-up demand. You just haven't recognized it yet. But I knew that having been through it myself, I knew that there are always going to be people in trouble when it comes to finding their next job. They need help, and it can be a very, very lonely experience. I've seen so many people really downtrodden because they're just not having the success, and they're feeling the financial and emotional pressures that come along with the job search. And so I knew that there was clearly a very substantial need here. And for me, I knew that I could help fill it. So quite honestly, I just felt like this was a really good place for me to be, not just from a business standpoint, but from an emotional and satisfaction standpoint, because I knew that for the first time, I really have a career opportunity where I could make a very big difference. And it's a difference in people's lives, as opposed to a difference in helping to make other individuals wealthy with the business that they had. I don't need to be a part of that. And to me, the excitement is really around, the individuals that I can touch. And so, I've just found that when it comes to starting up a business like I did, I stuck a toe in the water initially and gradually got both of my feet in there and got very, very comfortable with it. Because over time, I proved to myself that there is definitely a business model here that is sustainable, and something that I can be very happy with. So, for me, I've always been a planner, and having a very strong foundational marketing background, I knew how to create the messaging, how to define the value of this organization, how to get the word out to people through both offline and online markets. Because quite honestly, having grown up in the digital marketing age and having been very hands-on with it, I was able to apply all of those skills to everything I do on social media. And I am a huge, user of LinkedIn. I myself have over 13,000 LinkedIn connections. I've been very active and got in on it very early on, and I've been able to leverage it. And so, having the ability to put together a plan on what it is I wanted to do, over what period of time, and what would be the vehicles by which I could do and accomplish these things on my own, really determined how quickly I was able to roll out additional services. And I think, I have to attribute a lot of it to all of the corporate jobs that I've had, because along the way, I've acquired a really strong understanding of different technologies, of different ways in which to market, ways that are effective in which to demonstrate value, in this case of being associated with NSCNG. And so I've really wrapped around this business everything that has gotten me to where I am today, from all the experiences that I've had in business, from either doing them from a marketing perspective or from some of the business units that I ran in various companies. It's all come together here. And I'm just so glad that it's happened, because I know for so many people, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to make that leap of faith.
We talked about it's easy. It's much easier to be an employee than a business builder, isn't it?
You're correct. Yes, it's easier. Maybe not more satisfying,
Yeah.
but easy, from that standpoint.
Now we both have children, and your sons have gone into that corporate world. I think one of the
A son
reasons.
and a daughter.
Oh, a son and daughter. Okay.
Son and a daughter. Yep.
One of the reasons that I'm doing this series is I see a lot of graduates come out of school, and they really haven't necessarily thought about what they want to do. They kind of land in something, and then they just kind of keep going, and I'm just curious about your opinion on our youth. And, for those that maybe are looking at their parents' lives in corporate and just really don't see themselves there, what can you say to that group of people?
Being a young person coming out of college today is so different than when I came out. Because when we came out of school, we knew we were going right into a corporate job. The jobs were out there. But for young kids today, it's a lot different. And I think it's so important that schools help they should be very active participants in helping these kids that have spent so much money going to their school. These schools should in return be helping them to package themselves and prepare them for getting into the working world. And there are just not enough universities in this country that do a good job at that. I've seen it with some. I've seen it with some of the things that my kids have gotten involved with. But to me, that makes it so much more difficult for kids coming out of school, because just the basic things like pulling together your resume, a strong LinkedIn profile, how do you write well? So many kids today, and I think this is probably one of the biggest deterrents to a lot of young people today, is that many of them do not write well. I can't say enough about the written word. It has served me so well. And of course, early in my career, I was a writer. And so I've been able to apply that skill to every job I've ever had, because the ability to communicate, even in emails, internal to your company, are so critical. And so many people today are coming out of school. We've seen the transition, okay, with the cellular phone is a great example. Okay, I worked with Motorola when we invented that product. I was very actively involved with the bringing that product to market. But it was invented for voice communication. We never dreamt that anybody would be using it for things called the internet and websites and messaging and email. None of that existed. Today, short messaging is the way of life for so many young people. And as a result, they're writing in short, choppy phrases, acronyms. And of course, we grew up in just the opposite. We probably overdid it in terms of the usage of words, but it really served us well, and our ability to communicate well in writing, whether it's online or offline, doesn't really matter. But the communication skill is so important, and I don't see enough of that strong writing skill in young people that I've come across.
Yeah, absolutely.
They need to nurture that craft.
One of the things that I love about your organization is the mentoring aspect of it. And I personally feel like if people ask for help, most people want to give to others. But for some reason, as a society, a lot of us have stopped asking. What can you say about that? That was obviously a crucial, part of your success as your organization.
Yeah. I can relate this so specifically to people in a job search, because there are so many people in my group that have several thousand LinkedIn connections, and that's great. But you need to you have to leverage those connections to make them of value to you. And a lot of people are not very good at asking for help, usually for one of two reasons. Either they're embarrassed because they don't want to have to ask. I've never had to ask for help before. Why should I be, resorting to that now, particularly with close friends and family members and relatives? It can be embarrassing, and, it's tough for somebody to admit the fact that they could use some help. But the second is the way that people ask for help.
Right.
A lot of times people do not do a very good job of asking for help. And what I mean for that, particularly with people that are in a job search in this case, you've got to be very clear on how people can help you, because I agree with you. I think genuinely, deep down, people want to help, but you have to give them the vehicle to help you. And so when you're in a job search, it's easy to have networking meetings that go on, and you meet with them for an hour. And at the end of the meeting often ends like, well, if you hear of anybody who's looking for a director of finance or a VP of marketing, please let me know. And they go, will do.
Yeah,
Trust me, that conversation.
Specific.
It's going nowhere. That the conversation is going nowhere because you haven't given them a way to help you. Now, if you present them with a target company list and go on to LinkedIn before you meet with them, and you can sort through all of their connections, filtering on certain industries or certain companies, you can now present them with a dozen people that they're connected to, that you would love to get an introduction to because they work in certain industries or certain companies that are of interest to you. And you can present that to them. Now you've given them a way to actually help you in a very specific way, because you're showing them, here's the people, Here's their names, their titles, and by the way, here's their photographs because I took a screenshot of their LinkedIn profile. Do you know any of these people well enough to make an introduction on my behalf? I
Yeah.
did this time and time again in job searches, and I never walked away empty-handed. I always got introductions. And a lot of people don't think this way, but you have to. And it's no different in a sales role. Okay, when you're in sales, prospecting is the growth engine behind so many companies' ability to move to the next level. And you've got to be able to get into meetings with people and ask for introductions. And that's where the networking power is so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I find, so obviously your organization helps people in transition for their next career opportunity. Our topic, of course, is corporate to entrepreneur. You've obviously counseled, thousands of people through your tenure, and you've made that leap yourself. What would you say are the signs that people would have the skills that they can build a business for themselves, to maybe consider that for those in transition?
Yeah, and I do think that doing it gradually is a good thing because it will give you some time to prove to yourself whether or not you're cut out for it. Not everybody is. I knew I was because I always had jobs where I had a breadth of responsibility. Even when I worked in a large corporate environment like Motorola, I always found myself working in areas of the company that were early stage, you know, growing up kinds of businesses where you had to wear more hats than one and you had to have a breadth of responsibility across a broader range than you typically would have if you were in a multi-billion-dollar chunk of the company, right? So you've got to, for somebody who's thinking about, coming into an entrepreneurial setting, you got to realize you're going to do it all. Okay, you're either going to do it all yourself or you're going to spend a lot of money getting outside help, which is going to take away from the potential margins that you want to retain for yourself to ultimately make a sustainable business. And so you've got to be able to do it all. And in my particular case, I am doing every aspect of any company myself.
Mm-hmm.
I do the sales, the marketing, the business development, the IT. I do work with an outside web developer, which is great, but I can direct him on what it is I want to get done. I do all the writing, the messaging, and the accounting. And so when you have that broad base of experience, it makes your ability to come into the entrepreneurial setting a lot more graceful because you come in there knowing, you know what, I can do the bulk of this stuff myself, which enables you to really do the job and do it well. But it also enables you to maintain control over those things that you want to control. And that's important for somebody who is an entrepreneur. At the beginning, you want to have your hands on everything. And I think for me, probably one of my biggest challenges was scaling. How do I scale this business? Because I was doing a lot of one-on-one customization of everything. And what I've started to migrate toward is how do I do one-to-many? How do I build it once, but then produce it and make it available to a large audience of people without having to do everything as a one-off? It's no different than traditional manufacturing. The companies that are going to do better are the ones that can build something once and sell it to many, many customers, find ways on the assembly line to make it more productive. We are running assembly lines, okay? Our businesses in some regards are manufacturing environments. We're the product, okay, if we're providing the service. And how do I make my product and service available to the larger audience without having to slow myself down every time I get a potential new opportunity, a new market, a new customer? And so I really went after, particularly in the last couple of years, scaling, which really opened up what I did with my website. I turned it into an e-commerce engine. I sell things online now. If people want to purchase a recorded webinar, they can come in and buy it. If they want to sign up for a webinar coming up, they can come on in and buy it. If they want to sign up for a 4-hour workshop, come on in, register, pay for it. Same thing with coaching packages. And to me, this is a very exciting part of being an entrepreneur because you get the chance to experiment. And I
Yeah.
love trying things. Okay. I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to fail. And I think that that is one of the keys to being successful as an owner of your own business, because you have to be willing to experiment. You will only learn if you're constantly trying new things, and you're going to refine your approach. You're going to find those things that worked. You're going to decide certain things didn't work. You're going to focus on the ones that you did well, that have a future for you, and you're going to blow them out. And you're going to constantly be finding new ways in which to make your time more productive and your product and service more valuable. And I think that's really where I have focused a lot of my attention, particularly in the last couple of years when I came in full time, because it was important for me. I wanted to get the word out on NSCNG to a larger audience because I knew I could touch the lives and improve the lives of many more people if I could somehow find a way to make them aware of who this organization is and what value we can provide to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, how you transition, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to just go all in if they're going to do something. But you were fiscally responsible to your family. You've done a brilliant job of creating multiple income streams for yourself. I see a lot of companies fail because they do put all their eggs in that one basket. What can you tell people about that maybe you're excited about now? We're in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. For people viewing this later, there's going to be innovation that's coming out of this, and people like you're I'm sure thinking about new ideas. What are you going to do different? What could you share with others that they can be doing?
Sure. I think one of the good things that we're going to find coming out of this coronavirus pandemic is the fact that a lot of companies are going to come to the realization that it's okay to allow people to work from home. Quite
Hallelujah.
honestly,
Thank
this,
you.
you know what, and I'm so sorry to say that it's taken something like this for companies to realize it, but I think they're going to come finally to that realization, because there are going to be a lot of employees that are not going to be anxious to rush back into that office and potentially put themselves at a health risk. And so the work at home is going to be here for some time. But I think a lot of companies are going to realize, you know what? There's no point in carrying this big, huge real estate expense that we're carrying to house 5,000 people, 10,000 people. And we're going to start to see some of those things go away. And so I think that one of the important things is that people use this as an opportunity to get accustomed to and get good at managing your time. It's so important, and how to work independently, but at the same time, interact online with your organization, whether it's over the phone, through email, through GoToMeeting and Zoom, and other platforms that people are using to communicate with one another. I think people have to they have to adjust to this. They have to get smart with the way they use it. Okay. It's one of the things that, I was able to make this migration during the pandemic very easily because I already was doing webinars. I was doing a lot of things through social media. So for me, this was just a natural extension of, I took my in-person events, whether they were workshops or meetings, and I moved them onto the webinar platform. Easy to do. And people in the organization have adjusted to it real well. They're just fine attending a 2-hour webinar as opposed to a 2-hour meeting where they have to get in their car, drive to the venue, and go through all of the logistics. This is a better use of everybody's time. And I am convinced that this is going to continue, not just for me, but for many other companies for quite some time, because I think it is more productive use. And it just means that people have to be disciplined with their time. Okay. And, it's all about delivering, it's all about being productive and doing what you say you're going to do in the time frame you said you're going to get it done.
Yeah, that integrity promise to yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are almost out of time. We knew that this was going to go fast. I always like to ask a question about, kind of your future, your legacy of what you're leaving to your kids. If you weren't able to leave them assets, but you could leave them with knowledge and abilities, what would that look like for you and your children?
Well, it's interesting. Both of my kids have just tremendous characters, for one thing. I will credit and I'll give a pat on the back to my wife and I for some of that. But they both have really great skills. They're very perceptive people. They're very creative in different ways. And I think I like the idea of them taking calculated risks. There's nothing wrong with taking a risk, and it can be troublesome for some people, but I want to make sure that they're achieving the most that they can possibly get out of their careers and out of their lives. And sometimes that means doing things different.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I met because we both took expatriate assignments in Hong Kong
Mm-hmm.
many years ago. We met there. The level of circumstances that had to fall in place for us to meet were astronomical, but it happened. And I want something like that for both of my kids, to really achieve great things and to be willing to do something that might be a little bit unorthodox,
Mm-hmm.
because great things can happen from it. I've seen it for myself, I've seen it for my wife, and I want to see it happen for my children too.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great way to close our conversation. You've been brilliant, Marty. Now I know you had a complimentary gift that you wanted to offer to our viewers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'd like to offer to the first individual who emails me at martygilbert1@gmail.com. That's MartyGilbert, the number one at gmail.com. Just tell me that you would like to take advantage of my 1 hour free job search phone consultation. And we will spend 1 hour talking about any number of topics you want with regard to your job search. You can look for some ideas on my website, and that's nsenginc.com. You can look at some of my coaching at nsenginc.com/coaching. And of course, all the other events. But I would like to extend that offer to the individual who sent me that very first email.
Okay, awesome. And we'll make sure and get you all that link. So viewers, we are so glad that you came. We hope that you've find value in our conversations. Be sure that you tune in next time as we continue to hear from these amazing experts who have made that leap themselves into a successful business of their own and are teaching others to do the same. So bless you all, and we'll see you soon.
Right.
Bye,
Thanks, Lisa.
everybody.